walks away after winning his 100th game as the head coach here at Notre Dame.
The reason I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, I was born in this country. It isn't what you have, it's what you're taught about the values of life.
We trying to save souls.
So there's a rule in life that said you're either growing or you're dying. And like an old friend once said, we as Americans need to start winning again.
Everyone should ask this question. Am I willing to endure the pain and the suffering and the sacrifice it takes to be a champion? Greetings. Welcome to Lou Holtz Podcast. Our guest today is a very special person, Shaun Alexander. I was doing TV when he was starring for the University of Alabama. Shaun was a high school football All-American and the ESPN #1 high school player of the year. He was All-SEC in 98 and 99. Went to the Seattle Seahawks, was a running back, and was 3-time Pro Bowl selection and 2-time All-Pro. He set an NFL touchdown record in 2005 and became the Seahawks player to win the NFL MVP. Shaun was the Seahawks to their first Super Bowl appearance that same year. He's the ambassador for Stand Together, an organization with 850 of the most successful businessmen, women, and philanthropical leaders in the country. He's a founder and president of the Professional Legacy Football Program. Shaun, you have had just an amazing career. I could go on and on about all the things you've done and the success. But the fact that you're the best player in the country and was also class president, that's amazing. It told me volumes about you. And then you went on to have just an outstanding career. Now, what are the main things that you have learned through all this, Shaun?
You know, I was just reading this morning, and it was in Corinthians when it was Paul talking to the church of Corinth, and it was like, we could go on bragging and boasting about some of the great things we've done, but if we're going to boast about anything, we got to boast about the weaknesses. And it's only because of God that I could actually stand anywhere and do anything. You know, my dad had 9 kids from 4 different women, and I know the story is told about young men raised by single parents and then being a good athlete and all of the shenanigans that you could lean towards. And God decided to choose me and hook my heart to his. And so with all the flaws, all the possibilities for me to be not the statistic on the field or off the field, I've got to brag about how good God's been to me and how I'll be a fool to let him go. You know, what I've learned is that God is really good. And if you just trust him, everything that you can ever imagine shows up.
Amen. I agree completely. Has this always been your philosophy, Shaun, or did it change after the success you had?
No, I was uniquely different. I got saved at 11 years old. I was watching people cry at my church. I was actually watching men cry at my church. Don't even remember what the message was, but to see like men who are supposed to be the studs, and I just saw them crying over the understanding of what Jesus did for their lives. And I thought, I need to know who that is. And I said my first prayer, God, I don't know much, but I do know how to be obedient. And if you show me, I'll do it. And that began this journey, like sports, football, fame, all these things happen. But I was still under this understanding of, I'm just simply doing what God's told me to do. And it's been the grounding that I've always had. So even when I make the greatest mistakes, foolish things, prideful, sinful, arrogant, anytime I walk in those things, God would say, like, is that really who you are? And I'd be like, oh no, like my greatest brag is that I'm your child. Like I still drive into stadiums and big parks and drive all the way to the front and watch somebody pull out every time. And I'd be like, I'm your guy, you know? So like, that's the greatest thing that I could tell people is that when you actually know who God's created you to be, your swag can come from anything and it can never be taken away.
Well, the way I would put it, Shaun, you're a great player, but great players come and go. but you were a better teammate, and teammates last a lifetime. Because of your attitude, your faith in God, all those things come about. Now, you were awarded the MVP trophy in 2005. You were invited to 3 Pro Bowls and was inducted into the Seahawks Ring of Honor. How would you want to define your legacy and your work that you left on the field?
By the delay, Alexander slipping another tackle, and he's on his way to the 5, to the end zone. Touchdown, Seahawks. They go back to trips. The handoff, Alexander into the end zone on his knees. Touchdown, Seahawks. We're back to pass under a blitz. Here's the screen. Alexander, 20, 25, outside 30, on his feet, 35, 40, 50-yard line, to the 40, to the 30, to the 25. He's got room. Looking good for Shaun Alexander, to the 5, to the end zone. Touchdown, Seahawks. 80 yards for Alexander on the screen. Alexander trailing strong. There he is, making 4 touchdowns for Alexander. Handoff, Alexander.
There he goes.
5, end zone, touchdown, Seahawks. That's 5.
I think Shaun's going to hang on to that football. I think he's going to take that baby home.
Seattle 48, Minnesota 23.
You know, there's a great picture over my corner. You know, that's a picture of my wife and our that's 11. That's 11 of our kids. We had one more after that, so we have 12 kids now, and that picture is legacy. But what people also don't see is I invited high school teammates, college teammates, Seahawk teammates, Ricky Waters, you know, your guy, Ricky Waters.
Yeah, Ricky Waters.
You know, they're all standing behind those cameras, and I'm looking at all the lives that helped me get here, all the lives that I was so fortunate enough to impact together. That's legacy. That I look at this picture and I know what I'm seeing. Everybody's seeing me behind the camera. I'm looking at all these people from 4th grade best friends all the way up to Ricky Waters, who was like 10,000 yards. I'm going to eventually replace him. He's so talented and just teaching me the game. All those guys, all those women, all those family. It was a wonderful thing. That's my definition of legacy. It's all the people that I get to be a part of, and that they also get to tell the story and be a part of. What does a true loving relationship look like?
Well, Ricky Waters played for me at Notre Dame. And I got to tell you this. Our biggest problem was I only had one football, and he wanted it all the time. But I also had Rocket Ismail, Tony Rice, and the list goes on and on. But he was a great teammate, and I never had a problem with that academically or conduct off the field, other than the fact that he tested me a few times. But be that as it may, the year 2005 was truly a special one. You set an NFL record that was previously held by Walter Payton. Now, that's pretty good company, which was running for 100 yards against division opponents in 9 straight games. What kept you engaged and focused on tearing up the field with your heart? In other words, all the success you had, how did you keep motivated after all this? You know, you got money, you got a family, you got children. And I got to tell you this, the guy told me one time, George Oliver, team physician at William Mary, where I started my coaching career, he said, Coach, I don't care how many championships you win. If you aren't successful as a husband or father, you have failed. And that's meant so much to me, and I can say this, you have been a huge success along that line. But how did you stay focused with everything going around, all the opportunities you have, etc., and you're having great success? How do you stay grounded on that?
You know, I believe that if you actually understand your assignment, then the focus gets to, well, what am I here to do? And so there was not a game where I didn't come in and say, man, I've got to go get these guys. I know my role with this team, control the clock, score in the red zone. I understood the football side of it. Also knew that I was planting seeds that were going to stir them when they turned 40, 10 years after we retired, you know. I wanted to go out there and just be the best, seize the moment every single weekend, and I I like to, I like to go out there and play the bad guy. So I enjoyed going on the road and just being like, I'm going to make these people just hate that Shaun Alexander showed up. I'm going to play the game in such a way that when it's over, they're going to be like, is there any way we can get him on our team? You know what I mean? I want to take people in that cycle. That year, I'm behind the great Ricky Waters.
Yeah, so yes, you get drafted.
I gotta wait again.
Exactly.
you
Here
know
we
what I
are
mean?
again, right? The same, you're like, I've done this before. I've seen this
Not even
story. I've
worried.
watched this movie, right?
I will be ready.
I will be
when
ready.
when they call my number.
Backs and receivers, and this is a big one. Ricky Waters dealing with that busted up shoulder, and Shaun Alexander getting the nod.
It was a great start.
In his first 2 games as Seattle's lead back, Alexander ran for 318 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Shaun Alexander is going to be a star. Mike Holmgren's been saying it. All it's taken him is 2 games to prove it.
From 2001 to 2004, he scored 70 total touchdowns.
When he wants to get into the end zone, he does.
Hall of Famers Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, and Marshall Faulk never scored that many touchdowns in a 4-year span. Sure, they're gaudy stats, but they're nothing compared to what Shaun did in 2005.
The one thing that we can't overlook, Shaun, is this. You were with the same pro team. That's unusual.
Yeah.
Because of the type of person you were and the type of teammate you were. Now, you were a redshirt freshman at Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
With the transfer portal, we see a lot of young men instantly hop into the portal and try to get to another school, get more money. What was it that kept you there at Alabama?
I wanted to go to school with a legendary coach. I wanted to go with a great tradition, and I wanted to be the person that left my mark on that great school with that great tradition. And so my 3 schools was Michigan, which was Gary Moeller, and Lloyd Carr was the guy. Was Notre Dame, this great coach that I almost went just because of him, which was you, Coach.
You humble me. I say you're a very intelligent guy.
Yeah, and I tell you, you came in the room and you got great stories, but I'm gonna tell you because you probably don't even know what you said. You walk in the room and you said, "Hey, if you 3 guys come here, we're going to win the national championship 3 years in a row." And I'm looking over and I'm like, "Who are you 2? And I know I'm good, but the national championship with 3 freshmen 3 years in a row." I look over again. I'm like, "Hey, where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Ohio." "Oh, okay, cool. I'm from Kentucky." "And where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from West Virginia." "Oh, okay, cool." All right, so we talk a little bit, and we all leave. We see each other at another place, and then we don't see each other again until we're all in the pros. The kid from Ohio was Charles Woodson.
Oh,
The kid from West Virginia was Randy Moss.
yeah. Now, wait. Randy Moss was committed to us, was admitted to Notre Dame, and signed a national letter. Best player I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then in May, Notre Dame turned down his admission. They had already admitted him, but they rescinded it, which is unbelievable, which isn't the way you're supposed to do it. The one thing that I get upset about Notre Dame was that because I felt Randy Moss was a good young man, had a great mother, was very devoted to his mother. But I tell you what, if Woodson and you, Shaun, and Randy Moss had come, we would have won it 3 times in a row. I believe at the bottom of my heart.
I asked you, I said, "Why only 3?" You said, "Because none of y'all will be here for your 4th.
It's amazing. What do you think about the modern day portal?
Yeah. I just think that at the end of the day, like, I think that it's really troublesome because you don't get the opportunity to fight for your job. You don't get the opportunity. Like, it's robbing kids of some really healthy, masculine, tough things that you have to learn. It's like, well, what if there's a disagreement with you and the coach? Well, man, I've got to understand authority. I've also got to understand how to fight. And I feel like when you rob people from that, they don't actually get the opportunity to become the best version of themselves. So even though I chose to go to Alabama, the kid in front of me was the kid in the class in front of me, Mr. Tennessee. The kid in front of him was Mr. Alabama. And so here I am, I'm a freshman, and I've got two juniors that are the misters of their states, and they're playing good football. And I'm sneaking in the LSU game my freshman year. I sneak in, don't start, 20 carries, 291. Next week, don't start. Another 115, another touchdown. Don't start. I'm just coming off the bench being like, I've got to go eat and earn my way onto this field. And I think that there's something that's really sweet about that. So then when I go to Seattle and Ricky Waters is there and they say, well, hey, Ricky Waters is here. You might get a chance, but it's Ricky Waters. Well, Ricky and I became really close, and Ricky goes down 170 and 2 touchdowns, 150, another touchdown. And Ricky's like, really? Are you doing this? I'm like, I know how to fight to go get myself on this field. I feel like guys don't. And so tough times, they often fizzle out faster.
I agree with you completely. I'm waiting for them to put out a study, Shaun, where tell me the people that graduated, these people played for 4 different schools in 4 years. How'd they graduate? What'd they do with the money they made? And I think there's a lot to be said about perseverance, waiting your turn, preparing yourself, and being ready when it came along. It gives you a self-satisfaction and gives you a feeling with your teammates that are really special. Now,
What no one's even talking about, the Arch Manning kid. He's at Texas, just like me. #1 player. He's going to be good. You get there, he gets redshirted. Oh, well, maybe he's not that good. You know what I mean? And then he plays just a little bit as a freshman. Oh, okay. And now he's going to have his opportunity. I'm telling you that hold back, that stretching of the arrow for him, I'm not going to be surprised if he rips this place up on college football. Like, I hate it because he's at Texas and not Alabama, but I feel like that's going to be really good for him. And he's still going to make all the money. I just think like he did it. He's done it right. And there's some kids that have. And I think the money side of it is a little wonky because I do believe that they earn it. When I got to Seattle, they were still selling 37 Alabama jerseys for like 3 years, And so I do say like, hey, I should go get some of that money back. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like there should be just a better plan overall for the college kid. We were not poor. We were the poor of the middle class. You know what I mean? So a 2-bedroom apartment, thankful, wasn't in the projects like my mom was. So we were coming up a little bit better, but so like little money could have helped. Did I need $1 million? Probably not. So I always say like, man, if they get to a place where it's like, hey, this money could be what it is, and maybe we can help with the kid. But then we store it up till you get 25. You get a little bit, but store the rest up to you 25. I think that's going to help a lot of people mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the way through. So they got work to do. They got to just decide that it's going to be what's best for the kid.
Who was responsible for your attitude and the way you do things? Who's a person that influenced you the most?
Oh, without a doubt, my mom. My mom was amazing. Great lady, tough. She'd always she never spoke any bad against my dad. Like, we learned later that my dad was a promiscuous person, unsaved, and he's doing greater now in life. But she did that. But my mom, she never spoke against him. So I didn't have like these daddy, like, ooh, my dad never. The other thing is my mom's younger sisters. My mom had 6 sisters and 1 brother, and the younger sisters all married great men. And so she would always have us go be around them. Uncle Miles would go take us fishing. Uncle Les would go play basketball, And so we would just go and hang with them. And so she loved us. She didn't bash an unhealthy man and my father. And then she pointed us into what healthy men look like, my uncles. And so like that is part of just great leadership. You put the team around the people that go make them succeed. And so she did that.
Is your mother still living?
She is. She was just up here this year and just turned 74, 75 now. No, she just turned 74. She'll be 75 next March, but in March.
Well, you tell her how much you appreciate it. And your Coach Holtz, who used to be the coach of Notre Dame, said she did a tremendous job. Now, Shaun, you're part of the great Seahawks teams that nearly defeated the Steelers in the Super Bowl. In fact, you had the most yardage of the game with 95. What was going on with you at that time in your mind, playing against a great Steeler team and rushing for almost 100 yards? What went through your mind?
You know, that game was hard. That was the year I won the MVP. I was franchised that year, and so there was this, hey, we're not going to do the big deal. I wanted to stay in Seattle. We knew it was just business. And so it was hard because I felt unwanted by the organization, and yet I knew we had the team to go do it. And so that whole year, my wife and I, we were just prayer warriors with this. We're like, God, you're taking us to the Super Bowl. This is going to be a great glorifying year for you, and we're going to bring praise to your name. And so to go through that was just awesome. And then the game itself, I always want to kick myself because I carried the ball probably about 25, 27 times a game. And you know how you do the first 15. I was probably 8 carries, sometimes 7, and maybe 2 passes, 8 to 9 touches in the first 15. And in the Super Bowl, I only had 5. And it was because Coach Homer is a genius and we love him. But he thought if I bait the Steelers, who are known to stop in the run, and we throw the ball, we're going to jump out on these guys with some quick hits. And the game plan was good. You know, we moved the ball a lot, but we didn't just right down the field like I like. And so, you know, we end up losing the Super Bowl. And it's just hard because, like, part of me wanted to be like, Coach, give me the ball. We're going to win the Super Bowl 30 times in their face. Let's mash them, you know. But I didn't want to throw the coach off and also let there be some this we don't believe in you kind of vibe. And so it was a really tough wrestle as that game went on, you know. So, but the play in it was super sweet. Super thankful for that.
I tell you what, most players don't say to the coach, give me the ball, we'll win the football game. They don't want that pressure put on them. They don't want to take all that pressure. But, boy, you just had a great career. Now, how did you prepare mentally for each game? Was there anything special you did?
You know what? I was a person that listened to music, would pray, and I would go over the things I knew that stopped them. This team overruns plays. This team, linebacker's a big hitter. Let him get in the A-gap. I'll cut in the backside A-gap, make sure everybody's disciplined. It was funny. I could tell through my maturation of just growth from when I was in high school. I would listen to rap music like Tupac Shakur, you know what I mean? And the song Keep Your Head Up, you know what I mean? So I wasn't into all the cussing and all that, but I love that song Keep Your Head Up, to getting to Alabama, and that's when I was listening to Kurt Franklin. So it's still positive, you know. and then by the time I got to Seattle, it was just like full on worship music, and I'd be in, sometimes it'd be masculine, it'd be tough, but I'd be sometimes tearing up in the locker room, being like, just thinking about like how good God has been to me and how I get the honor of letting the world see one of God's children go to work and just mash people for 3 hours. That was like such an honor to me. So that's kind of how I prepared for the game. So it was a lot of music.
That's a great attitude. One thing I did with our players, we had a little session the night before the game where we went through the game and we tried to prepare mentally, expecting good things to happen. And what the mind can perceive, the body can usually achieve. Now, how's life after football treated you? And what have you been up to since your playing days? You know, you had a great career. But when you're 35, your football's over, but your life's only 1/3 over. What are you going to do with the rest of it? What advice would you give young running backs who are looking to make an impact on and off the field in the NFL?
You know, when I first retired, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna just spend some time just taking a deep breath, relaxing, loving on the wife, loving on the kids, and then I just really thought, you know what, I'm going to uh, spend the next season of my life writing out and helping guys with how do they handle this. And so I created the PLP program, which is Professional Legacy Program. And really, I was like, can you leave a life? Can you leave a legacy that matters? And I thought, well, how do you do that? And I said, you have to master the 5 F's. Fame, which is about your identity. It's just people talking about you, but is that who you really are? Let's talk about that. How do you master family? You know, the percentage of guys that don't have their wives and kids in their house after they play football is bad, you know? Friendships. And I help people walk through like, man, this is your ecosystem. These are going to be some of the greatest memories, but some people are there for seasons. And so just like a player that could leave and go off from college to pro, or a guy from pro to go to another team or retire, your friends can be the same way. And some could be lifers, but majority are going to be seasonal. So how do you handle the friends of the season? And also know some friends can't go in the next season with you. And then finances is making money and spending money. There's nothing wrong with neither, but like, let's have a plan for both. You know what I mean? And then
There's nothing wrong with making money, long to earn it honestly, spend it wisely, and a judicious wisdom in helping other people. Now, your wife, you have 12 children, I think it is. Your wife has to be spent. Tell me about her. Where's she from? Where'd you meet her? What's she like?
She is an amazing, fiery young woman from Olalla, Washington. And so she went to Seattle Pacific University, played basketball there. One of my teammates at Alabama, he was a senior when I was a freshman, went to the Titans and then played for the Seahawks. They traded for him in February. I got drafted there in April, and I get in town and he says, "Hey man, so excited. I've been telling everybody you're about to change this franchise." You know, Seattle wasn't known for winning when I got there. They only had 3 division championships in 25 years. They were known for, you know, people were known for we played Seattle. Okay, that's 2 wins. You know what I mean? And so I get there and he says, "Man, I've met this girl and I think she's special." And in my mind, I'm thinking, "You never talk like this." "Oh, okay, cool. Good for you." And the last thing he says is, "Hey, I'm throwing a barbecue. We're going to have all the guests come. Matter of fact, my girl's going to come and I'm going to have you meet her roommate. She's kind of like you in that Jesus stuff." It just leaves it like that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, that's okay. We're good. I don't need anybody. I'm going to just go play here and play football. And I met her and he was right.
Oh, that's great.
It was dynamic. Dynamic.
To be married that long now, how's your faith influence your life on and off the field?
You know, I just believe that in one sense, the Bible says no one's good but God. And so I have this amount of grace for everybody in every situation that any of us could be wicked at any time. And at the same time, with just a flicker of God's grace to give us enough understanding of who he is and what he's done and who he's created us to be and how we can go live that out, we could change the world. And so I have this excitement every day that says, man, if I could explain to you who God is, or I can explain to you who you really are, man, you'll be a world changer. And it's exciting to bring the gospel to people and let them know, like, even what we're doing now is nothing compared to what we get to do for eternity. And that's worship the King that had the greatest idea to allow me to be me and fully lay that down at his feet. It's pretty awesome.
My son, who's won 3 championships in the United Football League, is now with Birmingham going to try to win his 4th. But he'd always say, "Dad, you want to make God laugh, you tell him what your plans are." Yep. And that's the way it is. You never know. Now, how's your perspective on the game changed since you left the field?
Well, I don't really like the idea of how they degraded the running back position. I think football is still football. You get a great running back, you can actually have a foundational piece that changes how people defend, how people even think about playing against you. And I think that a lot of coaches have used the passing game in such a way that they don't actually use the running back correctly. And I feel like because they haven't, um, many great running backs are now playing defense. They're playing strong or they're playing outside linebacker, and they have said, yeah, we can make because we throw the ball so much, we can make the linebackers smaller. And I'm watching them like, you probably would have been a dynamic running back. So I don't like that about the change. But the fact of guys coming together, still players making plays, still a oneness of team, guys having each other's back, um, still hearing guys challenge each other to go be greater. It's still football's the greatest sport that you could play because it fully takes all these guys and all these pieces. This one message from the assistant coach that says, "Hey, coach, I was thinking this," and the coach saying, "No, no, no, do it this way." And that message getting to the player, "Hey, we're going to do it like this." And the player now saying, "Man, I don't know if I can do it." And the other player encouraging him to go do it. "Hey, step out, you got it." And then the guys doing something unbelievable. It's still the most exciting thing to be able to watch guys be greater than what they can imagine.
How did you come about starting this organization that you have run so successfully and influenced a lot of people's lives? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think the greatest thing about PLP is that I get to really remind people who they are. I get to train up coaches. We kind of have our step process from theory. Hey, are you really being the CEO of your life? Are you really making the decisions for your life? To application, how do you apply this understanding of who you are? To accountability. Man, I've got some people in my life that we're all going to hold ourselves to this great standard, to mastery. And to be a master of something, you got to know the depths of where it comes from. So I get to teach the Bible. I get to teach truth. I get to hear, explain people different cultures and ideas, from wealthy to poor, from other countries to American. Here's where the thought process of this comes. And if you can go master yourself, you're actually going to go be an impact to every world. You're going to leave a legacy that matters. And so getting to coach people, getting to train other coaches, all of that becomes super exciting to me. And guys love being what they were created to be.
Well, if you put your faith in God's hands, He'll never mislead you. That's for sure. Now, who were the people that influenced your life growing up other than your mother?
I've said before, my mom, my aunts, uncles, my grandparents, they were just great people. I think about my coaches, you know what I mean? They were all uniquely different, from Coach Rodink in sixth grade, yelled at everybody, "Stiff arm." I still remember that. To Coach Pollock, seventh and eighth grade, was a pastor. It was just a quiet spirit, tough, like, let's go get this done. To Owen Houck, who's passing on, to just, we're going to run the ball right down their face and we're going to make them feel this. And like that kind of like toughness, like football's a tough sport. Let's go get it. To the running back coach, I had John Alford, who was there. It was like, "Hey, money, let's go be it. Let's go make the play." To Alabama, being with Gene Stallings, and just so many great stories with him. Just, I tell it to people all the time, allegedly when Shaun was redshirted and some other players that were also redshirted, we were shooting water balloons out of the dorm into the fraternity house that was throwing parties. And we got caught. And we're all like scared because it was police, campus police, and no one got hurt. But we were shooting the water balloons, allegedly, at the garbage can, and they would splash and hit all the girls as they was walking by, and they'd get wet. So we just had kicks on them. We were 17, 18 years old. So Coach Stallings pulls everybody in. He says, hey, you 4 guys are going to run every morning this next week. 6 a.m. we're up, we're running. Next day, Tuesday, 6 a.m. we're up and running. Wednesday, we get there and the guys are walking back as I'm walking in, and it's like 5:45. Like, hey, where you going? Oh man, coach said we don't have to go. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I get back in the car. Like, no, you probably should go say something to him. I walk in and I said, hey, the counselor said, oh yeah, no, everybody got to go in except coach wants to talk to you. And so he says, all right, yeah, they go up there. I go upstairs and Teresa, our chef, was cooking food. He was cooking breakfast. And it was me, Coach Stallings, and just her up there just making the things. Hey, Shaun, you want anything for breakfast? I'm like, is this the Last Supper? I'm not, no, I cannot eat. What's going on here? It's water balloons. I'm over here trying to defend like how water balloons is not really that big of a deal. And he said, Shaun, there's few guys that we bring onto the campus that could actually win us a national championship. He said, the talent is one thing, but to be able to lead the rest of the guys to the national championship, few guys have that ability. He said, but the greatest leaders will either take them to the championship or take them away from the championship. And I just wanted to have breakfast with you and let you know you're going to lead us to the championship. And I thought,
wow.
Oh, yes, I am. And he's like, so anytime that you're not thinking about leading the guys to the championship, you're not thinking this thing correctly. And he said, can you be that guy? And I thought, I definitely can be that guy. And he's like, great. What else do you want in your pancakes?
The amazing thing, Shaun, the same things that made you a great player and a great leader for the Alabama or Seattle football team, the same things that'll make you a great leader with your family, with your friends, and the list goes on and on. So congratulations to you on what you've accomplished. But I think it's real important to always have something you want to accomplish. To me, there's a rule of life, Shaun. You're either growing or you're dying.
Yeah.
The tree's either growing or it's dying. So's grass. So's the tree. So's the person. But that doesn't have a thing to do with age. It has everything to do with, are you trying to accomplish something, or are you just trying to ride out the storm? And to me, getting people to dream after they've accomplished so much is very, very difficult, but also very, very important. So,
no, I'm with you. When you say that, it makes me think of the school that we're building, Harvest Covenant. It is like the newest dream that I've had, and it started with my son. My oldest 3 are girls, and then down here in the front, right here is Joseph. We homeschooled our kids. We were traveling Bama, Seattle, back to Cincinnati, Kentucky, where I grew up. And so we always homeschooled our kids. We just loved it, them being with us, made school easier. We could up and go if there was any games we wanted to go to or just life. And Joseph, probably about 10 or 11, took apart a radio and put it back together. And we just thought, we're having an engineer, And so super excited about who he is and love him. And later on that year, we went to a Pee Wee football game with our friends that had, some kids that were 12, 13 years old. And he just kind of looked and was like, hey, Dad, why am I not playing football? And I just thought, oh, would you want to? And he's like, I think I do. We put him at flag and he did great. And then it got to 7th grade for him. And he was like, can I play tackle football? And so we did. And I started thinking to myself, like, how is he going to play high school football? Because we're homeschool families and they don't allow homeschool kids to play tackle football at the public school. And so I thought to myself, I'm either going to have to create a big fight to the system and try to get him to okay, or we're going to have to create our own little homeschool team. And as we've gone through this process, they win the Super Bowl in 7th grade. They win the Super Bowl in 8th grade. He's a freshman this year. My next one, Justice, boy number 2, child number 5, he plays 7th grade. I coached that team, and we win another Super Bowl. And I just thought, okay, let's create a homeschool football league, and we'll use the co-op system. So a lot of families do co-ops where they take 1 or 2 classes, of English or a science or a math with a tutor, and we'll create a school off of that. Families can still bring their kids in, homeschool, come to the co-op like twice a week, and we're calling it Harvest Covenant. Our core classes are Bible and discipleship development, and then everything else you can take either through the school. We got tutors or teachers that could come in, or you could take it online. And it's been so amazing. We've been asked to play games. There's a homeschool conference that we're in, the Eastern Christian Conference. And then we are going to play in some games. And watching these kids grow and watching the kids come. So next year will be our first football season. We were just invited in the Homeschool Kickoff Classic to play in Lucas Stadium. So that's in Indianapolis, where the Combine is, and the Indianapolis Colts play. August 23rd, that's going to be our first game. We are super excited. It's not just to play the football, but now we have the opportunity to take some of the greatest athletes, and we know kids will come and move into our area, and families will move into our area. We'll take these great athletes, and we will make them disciples of Jesus that just happen to play great football. It's going to be so awesome.
Shaun, why did you decide to homeschool your children?
We were traveling. I wasn't sure if I wanted to live in Virginia or DC or Seattle. I just wasn't sure. And then my wife was like, I could do this. And then we had more kids. I was like, okay, so we gonna have to do this, and we just love the idea of innovative education. Like, it's not in a box. Like, with 12 kids, I clearly understand, especially with my first 3, we put a bunch of books in the room, and my oldest Heaven, writing songs at 7 years old, comes out speaking 3 different languages, plays 3 different instruments. We're like, oh, we're such good homeschool parents. Let's get it, And then we do the same thing with Trinity, our second girl. And she stacks those books up to get to the window where she can see and talk to the neighbors. We're like, wait a minute. Clearly, the same way you educate is not going to work for every single kid because they're different. Yeah. And so that's what leaned us into homeschooling as they got older. And we have just loved it. Like, every kid, we help them learn the way that it's best for them. And so we watch all of them journey through their faith. We were watching all of them journey through their academic endeavors and watching them journey through their athletic endeavors. And so that second child, Trinity, she's now a freshman at Liberty. She's on the track team. Eden, who's our third, she's a senior this year, and she was an All-American at track her sophomore and junior year. And she's got a great chance to run track. And we've talked with Alabama running there, and UNC, and also Liberty, also to run with her sister. And now next is going to be Joseph. We are excited because we've allowed our kids to grab a hold of their own identity instead of mapping out a plan to fit into a system. And I think that's what the best thing homeschooling does.
Well, the best advice I ever got, we had 4 children, not 12. But remember this, Shaun, when children need love and understanding the most is usually when they deserve it the least. And that's very important for parents. Now, we're winding down near the end of this show. You've been a great guest. I tell you, I wish I'd have said yes when you come to Notre Dame, because had we got you, Charles Woodson, and Randy Moss, we would have won 3 of them in a row. But the theme of this show has always been, what do we have to do to get America back to the culture that made this country great? To me, as you know, and Alabama had a great culture, and you had a great culture at the Seattle Seahawks. And as a coach, you're trying to build the culture. You're trying to build a culture where you just build a pride in what you're doing and how you're doing it. But I've seen the culture of this country change so much. President Trump's done a great job in this respect. He has just used common sense. And that's what we need more than anything. What do you think we have to change to get the culture of this country right?
I think that with the boys flag football team, we won the Super Bowl, and the boys tackle football teams, we won Super Bowls. Watching this, I've always said we've got 4 keys of success: putting God first, setting high goals, working hard, and enjoying the moment. And I think that when you have a consistent message, hey, this is how we're going to go do this, everybody set the goal. Otherwise, you now get to be uniquely you and make the goal work, and then go bust your tail, go work hard to go achieve it. I think that a lot of people don't have a clear understanding of who they really are, and so they're always trying to pick at who everybody else is. And I think like when you actually understand who you are, you actually be able to fit into the culture, because I know this, in God's kingdom, all of his kids win. And so the competition with each other is really flawed, because God's kingdom wins. And so I think the culture of America is hey, get yourself settled in who you are, and then go be the best version of you, so that everybody that's supposed to be touching you can actually glean from that victory. I always think there's a genius inside of everybody, and there's greatness inside everybody. Most guys don't want to do what it takes to tap into it. And I'm just saying, tap into it. It's worth it.
Shaun, I've been doing this show for 2 years now. You're as impressive a young man as I've ever had on this show. Your perspective of life and your values and how we articulate them has been very, very impressive. So thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with your 12 children. I look forward to following their success as well.
Hey, can I do a plug-in?
What's that?
Can I do a plug-in real quick? We're trying to raise the money for the school and get some kids scholarships that might not be able to afford to come to the school, or at least stay up there in the area, because, And so if anybody gets on ShaunAlexander.com and then goes to the link, you'll see some stuff with PLP, you'll see stuff about the award, you'll see some football stuff. But if you can go down to Harvest Covenant and click the link and leave a little donation for the kids to be able to come to the school and stay in the school, we're going to provide food and have we call it the Bible breakfast or the Bible brunch. And so paying for the kids to come to school, or paying for the food that the kids are going to eat, really just to share the gospel, and then encourage them to be great men, and eventually we'll add girls to the school, great men and women that can impact the country for greatness. Come, we need your help.
I hope that people would adhere to that. And let me add this. If they help you and help your children, help your students there, that they will become significant. See, a lot of people can make a lot of money, and when they die, that ends. But when you help somebody else be successful as a coach, as a teacher, or to help them get an education, you're significant. And that's where you help other people be successful that lasts many a lifetime. I coached for Woody Hayes at Ohio State. We won the national championship. And he'd been dead for a lot of years. But he still lives because of the people he taught, such as myself. And it goes back to Urban Meyer, Pete Carroll, the list goes on and on. So, let's make sure that we give ample information for the people on this show, where they can send the money, who they can contact, and let me know how I can help on this as well.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Yeah, ShaunAlexander.com, Harvest Covenant. There's a little donate tab. We're gonna change a lot of lives. My heart is to flood colleges with great, godly young men and women to go do great work and be great athletes and bring glory to God.
I remember when I was in high school, a little boy was asked to put together a map of the world, and they thought it'd take him a couple of years. He was back in 20 minutes with it all assembled. I said, "That's amazing. How'd you do it?" He said, "Well, on the other side of the map of the world was a picture of a little boy. You put the boy together properly, the world will come out properly." And that says it all. So thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to having the chance to visit. And when you see Pete Carroll, tell me he was still a great coach.
I will. I go down to Vegas to go see the Raiders often, so it's going to be great.
Thank you. Good luck to you, and God bless.
God bless.
And he walks away after winning his 100th game as the head coach here at Notre Dame.
The reason I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, I was born in this country. It isn't what you have, it's what you're taught about the values of life.
We trying to save souls.
So there's a rule in life that said you're either growing or you're dying. And like an old friend once said, we as Americans need to start winning again.
Everyone should ask this question. Am I willing to endure the pain and the suffering and the sacrifice it takes to be a champion?